So here's some more problems if you felt that there wasn't enough in the first introduction to it in lesson 9. I didn't want to make the videos too long, but I know some of you might feel like you could use some extra help. So here we go. If you turn to page 25 in your packet, there are more problems we can do together. So if you want to, join me. So here's the table. I'm going to take and I'm going to record this point first, because this is, if we were going left to right, would be the first point we'd get to. So this is the point -1, -4. And then this point right here, remember, be really careful if we're naming points that are on the axes. So see how this line goes through the y-axis? This is going to be a very important point someday. It's a y-intercept. 0, -1 is the location of that point. So what you're going to do, let's look at this. If we were going this way, the little man would be walking up. So this is going to have a positive slope. Okay. What is the change in the y value? So between here and here, what happened? It went from -4 to -1. Picture your number line. And what's going to happen is going from -4 to -1, or think of temperature. If it was -4 degrees and now it's -1 degrees, that's an increase of 3. -1 to 0, so if you were -1 degrees and now it's 0, the temperature went up 1. But make sure you slow down when you're talking about increasing or decreasing and you have to deal with negative numbers. So our change in y over our change in x, the change in y is right here. The y is changed by 3, and the change in the x's is 1. And does that make sense? So we have 3 over 1, which is positive 3. It makes sense because we already evaluated that. So your slope, m, equals 3. If you wanted to write an equation, it'd be like something like y equals 3x, plus or minus something. Next one, make your table. Pick your points. Now this is a little harder because the points aren't picked for you, but we practiced this in class and you guys did a good job. So I'm not super concerned about that, which is awesome. Okay, so I'm going to pick those 2 points. The coordinate for this point right here is -1, 2. And the point for this here is at 1, -1. So we're going to do, oh shoot, this goes, what? This goes down. I see. It gets tricky. That's just a little double check. Okay. So that when you get your answer, you can make sure that if your answer doesn't come out to be negative, you did something wrong with your calculations over here. So x, or the y values, went from 2 to 1, so that went down 3. And from -1 to 1 is an increase of 2. So your change in y over your change in x, you're going to do -3 over 2. That's your slope. It's about, what is this? If you turn this to a decimal, this is like -1.5. So m equals -3 halves. Okay, let's do this one. This is a fun one. If you look at this, remember the guy? We talked about this before. If he was going to go sledding, how much fun would it be? 0 fun! So you already know that this has a slope of 0, but this is how it works out. If you pick this point and this point, you have 1, -1, and 2, -1, and you could have 3, -1, and 4, -1. No matter what you do, those y values don't change. There is no change over any interval. So this would be over 1. So you get 0 over 1, which is just 0. So your slope is 0. Nothing's changing. This is like Leanne in the walkathon. She just had the $10 to donate. It didn't matter how many kilometers she walked, remember? So this is the exact same thing. There's no change. The more she does of anything, it's not going to get her any more donations. Remember, she just did it for the support. Next, if you don't know who Leanne is, it was in lesson 6 in class. Next one and last one. So you have your 2 points. The line is decreasing, so you should wind up with a negative slope. What is the coordinates for this point? -1, -1. The coordinates for this point, 2, -2. Okay, change in y over change in x, I forgot to write that every time. You don't have to do that every time. Is right here. So how did your y values change? They went from -1 to -2. So that's a drop of 1. And then from -1 to 2, so -1 to +2, increase of 3. Get that number line back out if you need to. Okay. So the change in y was -1. The change in the x values was 3 when the change in the y value was -1. And you wind up with a slope of -1/3. Now, I have so much more to say about slope, but we will do it in class. Good luck. I will see you soon.